Hello, everybody. Welcome to this month's edition of the Wellness Policy. It is the end of October, a week away from Halloween, a week away from November. And I'm here with Jordan Goodman of the Rainforest Café, as well as Neal Flanagan. How are you guys doing?
Great. It's good to be with you, Wai. How are you doing, Neal?
I'm doing well, Jordan, of the Rainforest Café.
Yeah, it's catching on. Look how quick. You just got to put stuff out into the universe.
What is your obsession with the Rainforest Cafe? You post about it all the time. It's practically a part of your social media identity at this point.
Very much so. Do I need like a coherent, reasonable answer?
No, it doesn't have to be coherent. I'm curious.
Okay, so I'll answer your question by asking you a question.
Mhm.
What's the deal with your t-shirt?
I'm wearing my Pasta Lovers t-shirt. This was a dinner that I went on with you, and you had designed these shirts for all of us to wear, and I'm wearing it right now.
Yeah, well, Rainforest Cafe is another establishment, we could say, where you could also enjoy a dinner. So clearly I have some fascination with dining establishments of varying themes, we could say. Pasta Lovers, the theme, I'd assume would be pasta is what they're going for?
Yeah, I think your t-shirt expands beyond that theme, though, somewhat, Jordan. There's Mac
Tonight, you got Sir David Letterman, you got Sir Eric Marcotte, and Wai, you're even on the shirt in one of those play school vehicles.
Yes, I am. Yeah. This is not really great radio for people that are strictly listening to this, but
YouTube.com/postwrestling.
Yeah. Well, thank you, those of you who decided to tune in. Check out this month's edition of the Wellness Policy. We have no agenda whatsoever on this episode. It's gotten like really over the past. I mean, when we started this, Jordan, several years ago, we did a lot more planning for these shows.
We had to read books.
I know. Had to actually do work.
Too much work.
And then I don't know, somewhere along the way, we just kind of maybe devolved into maybe talking about like what we wanted to talk about the week before, and then it became a few days before. And this instance, it was really the day before. And then we came out of even the conversation without any even real idea of what to talk about. And you know what? It's at the point now where I'm comfortable enough and just kind of relying on the conversation to take form as it actually, begins, that we have no idea what we'll be talking about. But
I like that. How do you feel about that?
I'm cool with it. Like, in fact, like I think some of the best shows we've done are shows that are just completely open format without any real, topic. Sometimes like even having a topic it limits the conversation. I think it might limit, maybe the audience that we might receive if somebody's just simply not interested. This is almost just like it's a blank piece of paper, so it's almost like a mystery box. You don't know what we're gonna get.
Yeah, I think especially 24 hours ago, the three of us had about an hour and a half call about the length that this conversation will likely be. And to me, that's kind of the point. I think at this point, the three of us trust each other enough to realize that we'll enjoy the conversations. It will feel uniquely rich to each of us. And at least for me, that's interesting. Like, I don't want this to feel formulaic. Certainly, I don't want it to feel pre-planned to a certain degree either. And, when we included Neal as an official part of the show last year, I think that was due to the private conversations that the three of us had. And I've been told by other people throughout my life, especially throughout my adult life, that when I'm engaging in them with the conversation, they're like, "Oh, Jordan, you're always talking about some real shit." And I always had trouble understanding what they meant, because
like the Rainforest Café.
And that's the complete opposite end that I pull at. And I suppose I'm just a balance of two polar extremes, perhaps. But I just always thought, well, don't you talk about personal things? Don't you talk about your feelings too? Don't you talk about social, cultural trends or patterns that you may notice? And maybe some people don't do that as a norm. And I've found I enjoy this, and I like sharing these conversations with other people because perhaps it creates possibility or potential for what they can be curious about or engage their friends with. So to me, that's a big kind of aim for me with this project, is to have public conversations that might stir something in someone else and give them vision or potential for what they may want to chat with their friends about.
Yeah.
And how about you, Neil?
I agree with that with Jordan. I mean, it's been interesting for me as somebody who was a fan of the show when it began. I think Flow was the first episode, if I'm right. And then what was the book about micro habits? And it was flossing.
Atomic Habits.
Was the kind of Atomic Habits. That's right. And they were the early ones that were kind of, yeah, you're right, kind of book based. And it's been interesting to see the evolution of it. And I think, as Jordan has said, that's tied very closely to becoming better friends with one another. So the need for a kind of a restrictive topic, it just doesn't seem to be there anymore. I'm not saying that we won't do that again. I think we should, and if there's demand for it particularly, and we could revisit issues like social media and things like that come up from time and again as hot topics. But I kind of like this loose format.
A topic will come up, you know,
and
like organically. And this month, there are certainly things that are like maybe going on in our minds, but I mean, it's I suppose different when we want to maybe, I don't know, concentrate it on for like a whole hour and a half discussion on these shows.
Sure.
So what's on your mind, guys?
Well, if you notice, I'm trying to do this cosplay thing where I've attempted to recreate Neil's room. I feel like I've gotten kind of the vibe.
You changed your look. What, are you in a different place?
Spare objects, kind of the more square rectangular image right behind me, kind of the beige background. It feels kind of Neil-esque. Am I wrong?
Again, terrible radio for people that are strictly listening to this, but
oh well, did we get to 15,000 subscribers yet on YouTube?
No, we're not. No, I think
this
we're like
it's been stuck at 0.9 for so long.
Yeah, I think we're like 23 people away. So
if you are listening to this and have yet to subscribe, literally,
we're not gonna have 23 people listening to this. You know, it'll probably take a few more weeks.
This show has surprised us, Wai. You never know.
Yeah.
I'm in Annapolis, Maryland right now. Are you familiar with Annapolis, guys?
Why?
My girlfriend's parents live here.
Oh,
it's very nice here on the water. I'm looking out at many dozens of boats docked.
Is your girlfriend's okay with us broadcasting from her parents' place?
What would her issue be potentially?
I mean, I don't know, the exposure, you know, to the 20 people that might be watching this right now.
No, I think they're like fully comfortable with these pictures.
Are they at home at the moment?
No, her mom is at work and her father flew to London en route to maybe Frankfurt, somewhere in Germany.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. He's a guitar slinger. You might be interested.
Is that right?
Yeah, he travels the world buying and selling guitars.
Oh, that's very cool.
I got a half dozen guitars right next to me right now.
I mean, I'm sure you two get along really well.
Yeah. Sometimes I beat him at Scrabble. My birthday was a couple weeks ago. They got me like a nice Scrabble set for my birthday.
Are you big Scrabble? I mean, no, obviously you are. Yes, you two are more than words with friends. You guys are.
We are locked in continual battle on Scrabble Go, which is basically words with friends.
Okay.
Yeah.
And who usually gets the better of?
It's pretty even. I haven't looked at the stats lately, but
I think edge goes to Neil. I would think.
Are you guys trying to chase, like, I don't know, a certain number before you actually end it, or is it just a?
No, I haven't gotten bored yet of it.
Not at all.
Wow.
Yeah.
And sometimes it goes days before someone takes a turn, and sometimes it's sort of rapid fire. It's
So I believe I played you.
incredible.
I might have even played both of you at one point. But I could never continue with something like this because I take it so seriously. I'll spend so much time making sure I get the right word that it'll just would take too much of my energy. So
I think my unofficial rule is that if I've spent more than 2 minutes, then I'm taking it too seriously. But so do you guys ever play in person with actual tiles on a board?
I used to. I don't have a set anymore, but I find the app version like a million times easier because it tells you whether it's a real word or not immediately.
Right, but then you lose strategy. So I didn't realize until I started playing with Lily's dad, Rick, and he explained that you can challenge. So just say I put a word down and he doesn't think it's a legitimate word in the Scrabble dictionary. He may challenge, and if he's right, then I'm penalized, and if he's wrong, he's penalized. And to me, that was really interesting because then it introduced this new element of bluffing. So I can put down a word that I know is bullshit, but try to sell it as if legitimate. And that creates like a really fun potential to play with.
what's the penalty for like a challenge that I guess is actually a word?
He loses his turn. The person who challenges incorrectly would lose their turn.
So why would you why would you challenge instead of somebody else? Like what's the benefit of you challenging versus like, you know?
Oh, if it's multiplayer, you mean?
Yeah, right.
I don't know because I don't do multiplayer.
Because you should get a benefit for correctly challenging.
You would, yeah, you would think maybe you go net or you get an extra turn. I don't know. That's a wonderful question. See, my issue is I love that they got me a Scrabble set. I don't have anyone to play with.
Yeah.
I don't know who to play with. I mean, Neal, you're going to come visit me in a handful of months. Maybe we could play. Nah, we should just stick to our phones. I think
so.
I'd rather not even
each other with the phone.
Yeah, you're not going to bring Scrabble all the way with you, like traveling, right?
No, he's coming to me.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Well, then yeah, you could.
We could. Maybe that could be something we live stream too.
But Neal,
that will get you guys over 15,000
easily. That would add another.
So for people who are unaware, Neal will be traveling to the United States for WrestleMania weekend, tentatively spending quite a bit of time actually with Jordan beforehand in Maryland before heading over to Philadelphia. But you don't want to come all the way from Ireland just to play Scrabble. You want to see what everything that Baltimore has to offer.
Oh yeah, Jordan is very plugged into the cultural scene in Baltimore, so yeah, I'm looking forward to him showing me the sights. Merriweather Pavilion and
Merriweather Post Pavilion.
Post Pavilion.
The Maryland Zoo in Baltimore.
Yeah.
This is what we call it.
You're going to get to meet
The Wire, something to do with that.
You might get to meet his girlfriend's parents
even. Probably not. They're an hour south. Annapolis is the state capital, but it's a bit of a drive.
I'll meet Lily though. That'll be a highlight.
I'm not comfortable with that.
Really?
Okay.
Yeah.
Why?
I think she does like you. She might like you a bit too much, Neal. Cock block, we could say.
Have you spoken much about Lily on this podcast?
I mention her regularly.
Yeah.
But I don't think I've spoken in depth about her.
Are you open to?
I suppose.
How long have you two been dating?
3 years, about 3 years.
Wow, I can't believe it. I mean, I've
known you the whole time.
True, yeah, and I suppose it has been that long. Already.
I think so. We've been doing this show almost 3 years.
You had simultaneous relationships.
You and I met her. We met on Bumble, by the way, and I believe you and I started to become something more like friends. Like toward the end of the summer 2020, and Lily and I met August 2020. So it's a very, and I feel like both relationships have just been blossoming.
Your life has just gotten way better since.
Very much so. I got COVID many times. My father has died. Things are going great. I've had diarrhea all day too.
But things
Hashtag
are obviously
wellness.
going well, right? You guys live together, right?
Yeah, we live in Baltimore City. We've lived together. Actually, the end of this month will mark 2 years of living together.
And how's that been going?
It's great. It's great. It's easy.
Nice,
It's
right?
easy. I kind of knew.
Good.
I think she was a bit more, not resistant, but maybe skeptical about how it would go living together. And I asked her if she wanted to, and I was pretty confident. Like, yeah, the whole it's great.
Felt natural.
Very much so. Yeah, the whole relationships felt pretty natural.
Yeah, I think from a distance, it's you guys seem incredibly compatible. Jordan is the type of person who will, without any warning, start a FaceTime call or a messenger video call with you, and
I would hate that.
oftentimes Lily will be there, shouting obscenities at me or something like that, and or making fun of my accent, and I think quite early on I got a daddy logo. It was my face with daddy written on it because she's graphic designer. So yeah, it was.
Made the shirt.
Yeah, she made that shirt. Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's great. She's like we went to a couple Rainforest cafes together last week. Like she's just easygoing, and she kind of rocks with my bullshit for some reason.
And when is she going to join this podcast? We should have a couples show, maybe.
That's not a bad idea. Well,
yeah, we'll get Neal to find.
I've been trying
somebody.
I've been trying to get Neal dating. I don't know if you want to talk about that or not, but
not really.
Fair enough.
I could bring my cat as a stand-in.
Maybe we'll just focus on Jordan and his relationship. That'll just be the episode.
Yeah.
Have you? Were there any difficulties or like any sort of friction? I don't know, issues that might have come up through cohabitation.
She's messier than I am, but I knew this going into it. Are there any issues?
And has that changed? Like, have you guys compromised in any way?
A bit. And what I think was kind of nice, we naturally divvied up some of the, like, I do the dishes and stuff like that, and she'll do laundry and she'll cook. So it's kind of like we have our own set of chores that I guess we both would prefer to do. And I think that was all unspoken. It just felt, again, like very natural. Any issues? I think she grew up in a much safer community. So like early on, I came home and the door was unlocked, and I'm like, we can't be doing this. Can't be doing this here. So it's more just like stuff like that. But as long as it's communicated with respect immediately, like, things have always been easy in that way. And that was one of the, I don't know if I mentioned this on the dating episode we did a while back with Braden or not, but maybe a few weeks into dating, I intentionally just like, hey, can we chat? And every now and then would have one of those like chats where I ask permission first if she's like has the time and the energy and space to kind of actually chat about something important. And I'd check in with her just about how she was feeling about the relationship and all that. And for me, that was a way to see, is this person not just willing, but how they are willing or not to engage in conversations that are a bit more direct and honest and involve vulnerable feelings and stuff like that. So she was very receptive and great with that stuff. And because of that, I realized I was getting to a relationship where this person is probably going to be receptive to direct truths communicated between us. And at least in the work that, oh, she's dropping shit above me. I don't know if you guys can hear that. That might be the biggest issue between us at this point. Maybe she's watching and not liking what I'm saying.
But you initiate those sort of like a serious talk types of conversations.
Yeah, initially, just because a lot of the people I work with are, I don't think it's hyperbolic to say terrified of doing that. I've been in relationships where I have felt very little permission to be as honest or direct as I would prefer to be, or I think would be beneficial to a sustainable, healthy relationship. So, yeah, therapy for many years certainly helped me as being a client or a patient of therapy. And I think it set me up to attract a really nice romantic relationship.
Do you guys fight?
No, I don't think so.
No?
I mean, how would you define a fight?
Well,
That
just
would
an
be-
argument, you know, like maybe you did something that pissed her off, and then, or she did something that made you upset, or something like how, like
those
yeah.
those things happen, but I wouldn't say we fight.
Okay. Yeah, I guess it depends on your definition of fight, you know.
Yeah.
Like, but do you guys get into situations where you have to test your problem solving, or at least like your conflict resolution?
Sometimes, but it's never felt like I've never experienced maybe more than I don't know, 20, 30 minutes with her where it's felt like, fuck, we're kind of at this like impasse or this standstill and there's friction. It seems we're very compatible in being collaborative and also bringing our issues or grievances to each other.
That sounds wonderful.
It's
Sounds great.
like it really is.
Yeah. I definitely feel like for my relationship, that was like one of the qualities that I think told me that like I could be with this person for a long, long time, was like getting into these arguments and then being able to come out of them, you know, having a good understanding of each other's perspective, and I guess, you know, being willing to come to some sort of compromise or some sort of agreement that, you know, takes into account both of our feelings. And it still happens, and I'm not good with it. I'm not good with, like, you know, like bringing it up. If something's bothering me, that's something I have to get better at. Or like if something bothers me, I tend to not want to make it a bigger deal than it is, but in not wanting to make it a bigger deal than it is, it turns into a bigger deal. And
Yeah.
she's really good at picking it out. Like she knows when like I'm in a bad mood, when something's bothering me. So she'll just like, you know, hey, like just ask me what's wrong. So but
Would you say that's unfair to her though, to put her in that position?
very much so. I mean, it's immaturity on my part. But it's also just sometimes it's an unwillingness to like, because sometimes there are things that like aren't big and that I feel like should not be brought up or don't need to be brought up. But they probably end up affecting me more than I realize. So, but in general, yeah, I could get better with that.
I think maybe in some ways I was starved for that in certain relationships, and I remember when I kind of learned in therapy of, oh, like I can have full permission to express my anger, even my hatred toward this therapist, and I can expect that he may not agree with my perspective, but at a minimum he will validate that that's what I'm communicating, and he'll lean into the relationship and engage with me. And that's what I do on day one with all the people that I work with, therapy or otherwise, to be honest. And when I realized that that possibility existed, I watched myself pull too much to that end. I don't know if I've shared this on this show before, but I remember with a previous boss being much more brutally honest with her and then realizing, oh, she doesn't like that and she can't take that. And so I realized, oh, I can't be this truthful or direct with everyone, but certainly when I'm choosing friends in the future, when I'm choosing definitely a romantic partner in the future, those are things that, again, I will kind of test the waters and see what their level of interest or willingness or skill set is for this kind of like emotional communication that feels vulnerable or there's conflict of some sort involved. But as a rule now, I certainly lean more into that than not, because I think you're right. If in the moment it feels harder to often be truthful and direct about how we're feeling, just like in the moment it might feel harder to order a grilled chicken salad for dinner when you have like fried chicken or something else super dense or fried on order. But big picture, if you keep doing what feels easier in the moment, that shit adds up. And if you're avoiding uncomfortable conversations repeatedly as a rule, like, I don't see how that's sustainable in a positive way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't speak too knowledgeably at the moment about romantic relationships because I haven't had one for quite a long time. But my last one was somewhat disastrous, and it was mostly because of bad communication, withholding, not telling hard truths to one another, and just sort of letting things roll on way longer than they should have. And that's an easy thing to pinpoint in retrospect, but when you're in it, it kind of becomes a cycle. And I think that the honest and truthful and as direct as the person is, you're both comfortable with, communication is absolutely vital to a relationship. Lots of other ingredients, of course, are important too, but I think without that, you're doomed.
Do you find that there were certain topics that, like, you or your partner might have brought up more often than not? I'm curious, like, what's a thing that, like, Neal might, talk about often in these sort of serious manners?
I mean, we're not talking about disagreements on big issues like political outlook or takes on what's happening in the news and stuff like that. It's way more kind of microaggressions, really. It's kind of, I don't want to watch this show. I'm not interested. I think probably it stems, in short, from some incompatibilities that were there from the beginning. And I don't subscribe. It depends on people's chemistry always. But in my experience, I don't really subscribe to the opposites attract, chalk and cheese theory.
Chalk and cheese?
Yeah, it's just I don't know if you can hear Siri, but
Yeah.
She is telling me what chalk and cheese means.
It was released on their 1997 album, Abbey Road.
Pardon me, Siri, stop.
What song are?
How
What song?
obedient.
Yeah, what song is Siri
She
talking
was
to you about?
banging on about John Lennon. I don't know if they.
Well, how did Siri get that from chalk and cheese?
I'm not sure.
I'm trying to think what song on Abbey Road would have been triggered from that.
Yeah.
Anyway, do go on.
I'm not certain, but yes. So I think we had different interests, different outlooks, but not on necessarily on the huge issues, and we weren't particularly compatible, and that kind of brings little resentments on very small things. So where it wouldn't have been a case of I disagree with you on X political issue, let's have a debate about it. It was more kind of built up resentments and then just being shit at kind of saying, do you know what? I think this relationship's kind of run out of road, and letting it roll on for months and months and months.
Neal, at the time, were you listening to live audio wrestling regularly?
Probably, yeah.
What did this guy make of those shows and Jean and Wai?
This guy was not at all into pro wrestling, which is not a disqualifier, but I don't think he was exposed to John or Wai. Yeah.
See, Lily's into wrestling now. Like we were hanging with just me, Lily, and her mom last night, and I don't know what I was doing at 8 p.m., but Lily just put on Raw. And I wasn't really, I didn't say, hey, it's 8, or hey, it must be Monday, or hey, let's do this. Like, Lily just put it on, and kind of into it. And then as we were going to bed, we put Wai, your live show on the iPad in the bed. And I think
I saw her in the chat room.
Yeah, of course, that was me commenting about the movie Dumbo.
Yeah,
obviously.
And no one bit last night in the chat. And
They rarely do.
that's fine. I like it that way. Us watching you while going to bed, Way, as odd as it sounds, like that's not an uncommon occurrence for Lily and I. And so much so that I even mentioned to her last night, you know what, like John and Way,
I talk you guys to sleep.
but
Wow.
even better, I was like, John and Way, they're kind of like our late night hosts now. Like I don't watch, like I loved Letterman, but he's not on, unfortunately. So it's like I don't watch Colbert or Kimmel with any sense of regularity. So going to bed and putting on the late night show and hearing just like the talk of the day and then the meat of the episode, it's like, yeah, Wai Ting, he's kind of my David Letterman at this point.
Right. It's us talking about like Nikki Cross, you know, working her whatever gimmick with Natalia. That's sort of what you fall asleep to.
And I guess the punchline is that Lily seems very fine with all of this.
Oh, you found the one, I think.
I know. So here's what we did last night, I swear. So on the iPad, I enjoy, I will zoom in to your guys' faces. So we were doing this last night and we had done it a few times in the past. And so if John is talking, I will zoom in to your face, Way, but particularly just your mouth. And because it's all of the little things that you'll say in response, usually at a much softer volume. He'll be talking and you'll be like, oh, wow. But just the oh, wow with like, it is. So to those listening,
You're making me very
highly recommend
self-conscious right now.
It's wonderful. And then John, and I give him credit and we love him for this. He still has this damn Pasta Lover shirt on display behind him. So he's interviewed Tony Khan this year. The Pasta Lover shirt is in that frame. Oh. It's wonderful. And that's part of the Rainforest Cafe appeal.
Tony Khan knows about Pasta Lovers.
Not even it's can I take something? He probably would have noticed that. It seems to be a details guy. I like just creating or taking the most mundane or dumb stuff and putting it on a pedestal. So the fact that we made this Pasta Lovers t-shirt, the fact that it still is in John Pollock's professional frame of which he supports his family, and then is interviewing someone such as a Tony Khan, like that all delights me. And so anyway, yeah, zooming into the mouth of the person when they're waiting to speak next. That's a great pastime, I guess you could say, at this point for Lily and I.
You're a real artist, Jordan. I think you're somebody who looks at the world and thinks, well, how can I turn this into something new experience that's not really intended. So now I wonder if there are people that are doing this with this podcast and with your face, maybe zooming into your mouth as I'm speaking right now.
I welcome it.
Your reaction.
Welcome it. That's a high compliment. Thank you, Wai.
Wow.
I agree. I think I brought up to Jordan, I don't know if it was yesterday or it was the day before, but one of my favorite creations is kind of based on one of the designs on the t-shirt. Way it's you in the little kid's car with I think you've got in that design you're drinking a Slurpee or something like that with a straw.
Frappuccino,
okay.
That's right.
And Jordan produced this little clip, and it's just that design, but it has an audio clip of you going, and what you're doing, I think, is agreeing with what John presumably said on a podcast, but it looks as though you're really enjoying that Frappuccino.
Yeah. So if I didn't know
still
Jordan,
makes me giggle.
If I didn't know Jordan, I guess through other interactions, I would have probably thought that it was like the weirdest, borderline creepiest, like something somebody could do. But I mean, I also know him, so I think it's actually pretty hilarious. From my perspective, it's kind of weird, having maybe what you're describing to me, Jordan, of like, the experience of my voice or John's voice being sort of the soundtrack to your sleep.
Oh, I've spent well over 1,000 nights in my youth falling asleep to Conan O'Brien.
Right.
And
But-
it's you guys have replaced that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's odd. I mean, it's less odd now because I have heard it like, I guess several times, and I have a similar experience with like other things that I consume. People that are like not at all any sort of celebrity, but might have a show or a platform that I happen to have found and happen to like.
But what's a celebrity?
What's a celebrity exactly?
You know,
What
it's
is it?
someone we
Yeah.
celebrate, and we certainly celebrate you, Wai.
Well, yeah, I mean, I celebrate you guys as well. Sometimes I'll be listening to you guys, and having a very similar experience myself. So, I don't know what it means to be a celebrity these days.
It goes back
certainly don't.
away for you, Wai, doesn't it? I mean, no pun intended, but I mean, there's some old pics from the live audio wrestling days with you and John doing get-togethers, and the folks have those gigantic, what are they called, big heads?
The
or
big heads,
something?
yeah, that's Bill. I mean, a lot of those signs are from Bill and over in Florida. So yeah.
Yeah, that's got to be.
I don't know
weird.
if that's celebrity. I mean, again, like we have a very, I would say dedicated small following. And that in many ways, like that's exactly what I'm happy with.
Yeah.
So
You don't seem like someone that craves attention.
no, I often run away from it, to be honest. And I don't think it's a very good trait for somebody like in my position of work, to be honest.
Well, many do in your position of work.
And I think a lot of your success is actually kind of dependent on it, wanting to have the biggest audience possible. But I've always been somebody a lot more comfortable behind the scenes, and have gotten more comfortable in front of the camera, of course. But it's not sort of an inherent thing I look for. But you have said, Jordan, in the past that it is something that you want.
Yeah, I mean, I literally dreamed as a child to get on stages, and thus have done that in various ways. More literally as a child, as a musician, like playing in my own rock bands, but doing this podcasting stuff, I get invited and hired to present and facilitate and speak at conferences and retreats and things like that. So I like, and I'm making an association right now. Yes, I really enjoy. Part of it is certainly center of attention, but it's more like the potential of that. So, Wai, you were referring to me very kindly as an artist before, and the association I'm making is that, like, I look at the world, and often what I see is potential, meaning things to play with. Maybe similar experience that you have with Lego, especially if you're free building, and you just have a bunch of Lego, and you can do anything with it. So similar, if I have the attention of a room, okay, that's interesting. What can I do with this potential? And to me, that's really energizing. And there's a lot of creativity and fun that goes along with that for me.
So is it sort of like a play for an audience, or is it a play for yourself? Are you looking to amuse others, or more so just yourself?
Both. I'm certain. Well, it depends. Like this, not Steve Bielenki stuff. And sorry for those who don't know what I'm referring to, but I don't care to explain it.
It's another Jordan thing. That's all you need to know.
And there are a handful of people in the world that really, really fuck with it. And it really excites them. And the further I take it, the more that they get a thrill of it. And most people have no idea. So, for instance, when we were in Disney a couple weeks ago, and I brought a not Steve Bielenki tank top, and I had Walt Disney World like make me a not Steve Bielenki pin that I wore throughout the day. Mm-hmm. When I post that, Lily's dad texted her saying, "What the fuck is not Steve Bielenki?" And that's typically the response. Almost on a daily basis, someone asks me like, what is this? I don't get it. And that's kind of the point. And so from that perspective, it is for me. I'm not trying to please anyone. If anything, I'm trying to, I can't say,
You're making fun of them.
I'm not making fun of them. necessarily, because it has nothing to do with them.
But
I think
you're
you're-
having fun with their ignorance of the
You're
thing. that
having
you're-
fun
Oh, that yes,
confusing people.
that delights
Sure.
me. Yes,
Yeah.
that delights me. Now again, pulling at the opposite end of this, if someone is paying me, if a retreat or a university or a company is paying me to facilitate a group experience, obviously my intention is going to be of service and of tremendous value to them. And that intended outcome is agreed upon and kind of sketched out prior, of course. Now, am I going to get some in for me? Of course. If I'm going to speak to like a room of suits, I'm probably going to drop in like a motherfucker at least once. Just for me, you know? And I realize sometimes that turns people off, and I'm fine with that. Very fine with that. So I might like crack a joke in the moment. And again, if I get some laughs, great. But if it bombs, sometimes that's even funnier to me. So a little bit for me, but mostly for them. Certainly if I'm getting paid for the experience. But some of this other stuff, this Rainforest Café stuff, by the way, gentlemen, we all will be in Philadelphia this coming April. There is a Rainforest Café about a 60-minute drive in Atlantic City, New Jersey. This could happen.
It's an exciting potential.
Yeah, I might be a bit busy with coverage.
This guy.
Well, you've been to Atlantic City, yes, Wai?
I've never actually.
Oh, that surprises me. It's a fun town. You got a beach, a boardwalk. I think a Ripley's, believe it or not, still exists. I've been there many times as a child.
So what is that like just across the river or something?
That's a good question. Well, so Philly is on the
I'm not
water.
gonna go. Yeah,
I don't know. It's on the ocean. I don't know if it's a river, but it's on the Atlantic Ocean. So you got to travel. I don't know, the Jersey Turnpike.
Okay, maybe it's someday. Someday, I'm sure we'll make it there. But I maybe I just wanted to get back to the heart of like I think this sort of because I wish I had that. I wish I had more of like a craving for like attention. I feel nervous. Even it's funny. I don't feel that nervous like doing these podcasts anymore. But like sometimes I think a lot before I tweet out like a personal opinion, just because I know like. Oh man, like it's whatever I say, especially if it's about wrestling, I feel like it's going to be I'm going to scrutinize it a lot, and it has to represent me fully, and I have to fully commit to it and believe in it 100%. That's why I probably don't tweet about it so often. But but I just don't even care for people to like everybody to know about this thing. But for you, I'm just trying to understand it. It's so that you can have an audience that you can play with, or at least like like is it part of your own amusement at the end of it all, or is it
I don't think there's like
nervous?
I'm that much of a psychopath per se. Look, there's and just the way that you framed it that way made me
Sorry, I didn't
I understand. I understand. There's certainly a desire to be seen, to be understood, to be validated. I think we all to some extent carry that as just an innate desire within each of us. I really like my parents, I think, socialized my brother and I toward this in the sense that they were very comfortable expressing themselves in bold ways through the clothes that they wore, especially my dad, through the ways that they socially engaged with other people. Like they were not afraid to stand out. They were not afraid to be different. So they certainly socialized. Like we were the first to dance if we went to a wedding or something like that. Like that stuff was normalized. So I didn't grow up fearing others. I didn't grow up like to be different was celebrated in my family. And if my parents were cool with it, that's where I felt safe with my parents. So if it was good by them, then it's good. In large part that was acceptable behavior in the world. As I started, and I was always drawn to bands, and I just wanted to do that. But also, like, I did the morning announcements in high school, and I feel like I shared this on some episode in the past. I don't know, but it's something that I did that was felt, I don't know, so insignificant. And then many years later, I realized, oh, that's like, no one suggested I do that. I went just, I guess, to whoever and said, hey, I want to do this, and they let me do it. It's not like I did it with like a partner even. And so there was always something about me that wanted to broadcast. I don't know, like I don't know how much of it felt like a performance, but I liked the responsibility of like raising my hand and say like, I'll be the one to do this. Also, as a kid, I would record fake radio shows on a boombox, and like I liked broadcast in all various forms. But so wait, you're literally a broadcaster by definition. So
I like broadcasting too, but I guess for me it's not so much about like having my voice be attached to it. You know, I like facilitating broadcasts. I like everything maybe around it, you know.
Is it similar to building Lego for you? Like you're constructing a thing?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, or just simply like creating something, you know. And like, I guess, I mean, to take it into like maybe more of a band sort of like I don't know, metaphor. Like I like creating the music rather than necessarily, you know, being the front man and singing it. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, or designing the album cover, or you know, like booking the show, or things like that.
Gotcha.
There's a lot more to it than simply just, you know.
But wait, there is
voice.
found footage out there of you singing karaoke and stuff like
Is
that.
there?
I mean,
Yes, of course. Yes.
well, it made its way, at least in audio form, into John's tremendous post profile piece that he did on your wedding day.
Yeah,
or
doing some
unveiled
baccarat.
on your wedding day.
That's right.
Now, does that just involve a lot of alcohol in those days when you were younger, or was that an outlet?
Yeah,
for,
I mean, I'm
I'm trying
not.
to get out there.
Yeah, I'm not so shy. Like, you know, like I do this for a living, and I believe that was Dan Lavransky's birthday. I think. No, wait. It might have been just an outing with like, you know, John and Jay and stuff like that. I guess, I don't know, on occasion, like, I mean, I'm still I like to think of myself as like a person that does occasionally have fun. So,
and I'm envious of that, because I have not done karaoke, at least as an adult, and I have a lot of fear. I've been in a handful of situations where I was at a place and karaoke was happening, but I get way too self-conscious.
Well, you got to hang out with Braden and Davey.
They're professionals, it seems.
They I feel like they are probably known figures in the scene.
But they can sing.
I'll say, I'm sure you can.
I don't know.
I'm sure you can sing well enough.
Well, again, well enough doesn't even have to be good at all, because it's karaoke, you know, and that's part of the point, I think. But
you got to find a song that fits you. Okay.
What song did you do? Do you remember?
It was some Never Want to Fall in Love Again by the Burt Bacharach song or something. Dude, it wasn't even a great song. Like I was just probably in a phase at the time.
I don't know what would be a good song for me.
What's your range? You know, maybe we'll do a test right now.
Range, I don't even know the difference. And maybe part of the hang up is that I've been a professional musician for most of my life, that I've surrounded myself with really incredible vocalists, and that's something I never developed. And I'm just always self-conscious.
Karaoke is not about that, though.
I know, but I think I'm hard on myself. Clearly, I'm hard on myself.
That'd be like saying, you know, I would never want to broadcast because I can't sound like, I don't know, Walter Cronkite. You know, I mean, I would at least say for at least some of the people that listen to my shows is that I don't feel like a polished broadcaster. And much in the same way, I love when I go to karaoke, I kind of have more fun listening to the people that are just complete amateurs and not
of course
very good.
Of course, but I don't think I'm like, I wouldn't want to lean into, I'm going to intentionally be so bad that it's self-deprecating.
You don't have to be bad. You could just be, I mean, people that are just looking like they're having an amazing time. Listen, is Eric amazing at singing Batista's theme song.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
But I mean, does
It
he
is,
sound
right?
like record perfect? You know, like it's not perfect, but because he puts his heart and soul into those performances,
Yeah.
I mean, they're amazing. Yeah,
It's hard. There's a you have to let go.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's it.
And
I can't do it without having and I don't mean blind drunk, but I do mean oil the wheels a little bit with a couple of beers at least, just to, make it easier to stand on a stage with a microphone and sing. Because it's not a small thing if you're stone cold sober and sort of in your head about it. But I'm wondering, Jordan, whether it's a little restrictive for someone like you who likes to, we've talked about this, kind of play with things. And, you know, I consider you a performer, but not in, I don't mean that in any derogatory way, like in a like you act in a performative way is not what I'm saying. You like to perform in a band, in something creative. When you were a kid, as Calvin, the obstreperous teenager in the wrestling ring. But those are all things where you're improving a bit, riffing, deciding what to do on the fly. I think a song is kind of singing a song is maybe, this is a theory, maybe something that's a little sort of right, literally by the numbers. I've got to, I can't have as much fun with this. Would that be? What do you think?
I don't
Am I
know.
talking shit?
I think it's a worthy theory. I don't know if that's it though. It confuses me because I think relative to others, in many ways, I'm very good at just letting go and letting God. Like I'd love to be on you guys know Impractical Jokers?
Yeah.
Sure.
Like that seems to be the most fun thing. Just because like you're putting yourself in incredibly awkward social situations, but you have the backbone of it's all for show and you got friends with you and you got a crew with you. So and to me, I would love nothing more than to participate in something like that. And I think that would be scary for most people. Public speaking apparently is the people's number one fear. And I thrive in that. But yeah, there's something about the karaoke. It's the singing. It's the singing. I don't know. Maybe I haven't found my song. Maybe I just need to try it and then realize, oh, that was nothing. And maybe that was even kind of fun.
Have you done like private booth karaoke?
No,
I haven't.
no. I've been in one once, but I was meeting friends and I didn't know the other people, so I didn't even like think to participate.
Right. Well, maybe that's something that we can add to the list of things we might do in Philadelphia,
I'm open to
Atlantic
it.
City.
Sure. I think it's intriguing though, just to rewind a little bit, that way you prefer, like you said, I love that analogy, the person who creates the cover art or the person who's mixing the track rather than being the front man. But you are the front man, very much so, of post wrestling, along with John.
Yeah,
and he is, by his own admission, is not the most extroverted guy either. He's a tremendous broadcaster, but I think he would himself admit, and has done on air, that I don't think, I'll put it like this, I don't think either of you are walking down the street going, why aren't people shouting, hey, it's Wai Ting, or it's John Pollock from Post Wrestling, and greeting your adoring public. That's clearly not the sort of people you are, but you are on video and on audio pretty much every day at this point.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what's so weird about maybe like modern broadcasting on the internet. I mean, in another world, in order to even get this platform, we'd have to be fighting pretty hard for it, to get on a public airwaves or broadcast airwaves. You're competing with a lot of people, and I just don't think that leaves much room for people that are kind of maybe more naturally introverted, unless we were like actual, I don't know, experts. Well, we are, I suppose. John is certainly an expert in some of this.
You both are. I mean, and John has done studio presentation for a TV channel. I've seen clips from the Byte Network where he's he's presenting, a show.
Yeah,
So
John is incredibly fascinating. Yeah,
You guys also have a charisma. You both have
Very
a
much so.
wonderful sense of humor, and also the chemistry between the two of you perhaps might be
certainly. Oh, I
the
appreciate
magic
it.
to that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think a big issue in academia and in science, and Leah Elson, who we had earlier this year, I think kind of spoke to this, is that so many people that are drawn to like really important research in all types of fields, and people that social scientists and like people that it is their expertise, and the information and insights that they acquire through their expertise that could be interesting and even helpful to the general public oftentimes doesn't make it to the general public because there's a personality issue, meaning that they don't have the personality that suits them to effectively communicate to the public. And that's a shame. That's a shame. So I realized, Wai, your personality may not be so egocentric, but you certainly have many really effective personality traits and qualities that have allowed you to penetrate from my perspective, very significant grouping of people in the world.
Yeah, thank you. I don't I don't want to turn this into too congratulatory, but I do appreciate that. Like something I've learned for myself personally, and I think of a lot of people that might classify themselves as introverts is, I think it's very sort of circumstantial when somebody might be an introvert versus when they might be an extrovert. And for me, at least, if I'm around a comfortable group of people, or if I might be among other introverts and I happen to be the most extroverted of the introverts, then I'll end up doing a lot more of the talking. I think maybe it's more about finding what you are comfortable, finding a comfortable space for you. And thankfully I found that amongst, people like yourselves. So.
I agree with that. And I relate to it as well. I'm not as outgoing or hypersocial as a Jordan or a Davey, who will, I think on one of our shows, he talked about, the need for human contact to the point that he'll walk to the coffee shop just to have sometimes a chat with the barista, that's not me. And I relate more to what you're saying, Wai, is, which takes me to, being in Toronto in June, where it's more of a performance for an audience when you do those live podcasts, So I was there for the live Ask Away. How does that feel, when you've got that crowd around you? Kind of, is that? I mean, it's clearly different from sitting, where you are.
Way
right
more
now.
difficult for me. I definitely feel a lot more nervous in front of them, and I don't feel like I'm myself as much. And I think that just might be like a lack of experience and being a lot more conscious of the immediate feedback of seeing like how people are reacting to the words that I'm saying, versus on a show like this where I don't see that. You know what I mean?
But that's interesting because it's not like you do that for the general public, or you're like on a bill with others. Like when you do these
There are
things,
less people watching. Yeah,
but it's literally your audience coming to see it.
Yeah,
That's my point.
Sure. Definitely. But it's still different when you're seeing maybe the immediate feedback, But what would that situation be like for you, Jordan? Like when you're performing on a stage, you're seeing, an audience react to, I don't know, music that you're playing, versus recording, I guess, in a studio.
Oh, the recording is far less interesting. I like the idea of constructing the song, and then there's a thing that will exist forever. But
I guess it's quite different because you do have a script essentially, like when you're performing live, right? Like what you're playing. There's
too large. I mean, I had an instrumental band when I was much younger, and we allowed that to be a lot more loose, and we could improvise because there wasn't a singer, and there wasn't like a chorus with a known vocal part. So, and every show was different because of that. That was very exciting. But historically, writing the song, recording the song, that was all a means in large part to get to play shows for me.
Right.
Yeah.
We do have a few calls, and if you'd like to call in right now, this is an open topic episode, so we are happy to entertain anything that is on your mind on this edition of the Wellness Policy. You could find the link either in your patron mailboxes, or if you look into the chat room right now, the StreamYard link is right there. So simply paste that into your browser or on your phone, and you can get your thoughts in, your questions in, your comments in on this edition of the Wellness Policy. Let's go to the farm. And let's check in.
Wow.
The resident rancher here at Post
Wow.
Wrestling. First time we've spoken to this man since he's moved, I feel, to his new Dickie Bird, welcome to the show.
6 a.m. Dicky.
Yeah, 6 a.m. So it's not too bad. I usually get up and your show is already finished. So I don't know, is it a bit later today or something, or?
So give the world an update on the changes in your life. I mean, other than, of course, becoming one of the new co-hosts of Eagles Don't Hunt Flies, available on the Poison Rana Network, chronicling the career of John Moxley. Fantastic work there. But what else is up, Dickie?
Well, I had my child. Well, I didn't, but you know what I mean. And I decided that, you know what? I don't really want to go back to work. So I got rid of my job and I moved an hour out of the city to a rural town in Queensland, Australia. And I bought a farm.
Wow.
And here's one of my horses.
Congratulations.
This
horse.
is Tank, named after one of the members of Three Count.
The legendary, yes, Mr.
Yeah,
Abbott.
you'll be talking about that with Brandon, I think, on an episode of Thunder coming up, maybe.
What's your other horse's name?
That's Lola. She's quite young. She'll be my son's horse when she's older. So yeah, I bought a. It's not a farm.
You bought the farm.
It's a ranch. It's. I was inspired by Mikey Nichols.
What's the difference between a farm and a ranch?
This is a good question. I mean, I don't really farm anything, so I can't really call it a farm, right? I don't.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of land, and you have horses. Is that?
Yeah, and it's just. And I have a stable.
Wow.
This thing.
Wow, yeah.
Beautiful.
This is it's a pity Pollock isn't here. This is so South Fork-esque. That was a ranch.
Yeah,
they didn't farm. So the Ewings.
He'd enjoy it. I've been meaning to call in either on Rewind a SmackDown or something like that. But it's always just depends on the moment, because my child is insane, by the way. And he will enjoy the story as well. But this is for you, Wai. Last year when I visited, and you probably don't remember this because the state that you were in, but we all had dinner at the Korean barbecue, and you looked like a ghost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
For obvious reason, because I think Oscar was 4 months old at the time or something like that.
Something like that, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And I just remember, and obviously at this time I was like, I'm not having kids or anything. I mean, my partner was pregnant, but I did not know that. And John, he just looked at you, and he did the Nelson Muntz. He pointed at you and did the Nelson Muntz ha ha in your face.
I don't remember that. Okay, but why?
Well, because you looked very tired, and he was like, yeah, I've been there, and I've gone through that, and
Right.
Good fucking luck is basically, in the nicest possible way, in the nicest John Pollock way, but basically just kind of saying yeah, it kind of sucks, doesn't it? And yeah, that's what I think about through every single sleepless night, which is every single night. I just know that Pollock would just probably laugh at me if I complained about how insane the whole thing is.
How is Dickie Jr. sleeping at the moment?
Not great. He's actually been sick for the last couple of weeks with 2 different things. He's recently been socializing and going to daycare and all that sort of stuff. So, that's where they get all that shit. And he's been perfectly fine up until then. And the second that he's around, other children, then then it all went to hell. So, hoping that he is better by tomorrow, so I can give him back to the daycare. And then I can, watch Dynamite or something in peace.
I mean, it's a lot of work for sure, but I mean, you wouldn't have it any other way, It's completely the most rewarding thing, that somebody can put time into, other than having a ranch, perhaps.
Well, yeah, I mean,
oh, you're reconsidering the whole fatherhood thing.
No, the ranch part, bro. I guess owning this place is like there's a lot of things you need to keep on top of. What you don't actually know, what I'm doing right now is I'm actually just
what are you doing? You're just walking.
I'm going around the property for looking for snakes.
I hear that's an issue.
Well, we have a big snake skin in one of our paddocks. So there's been one hanging around, shedding itself. So just kind of seeing if I can see anything. And also trying to see what kind of snake it is, because depending on what kind of snake it is, depends on whether or not you need to get inside.
So this is like part of your daily routine now? Wake up at 6 a.m., hunt snakes?
Hunt snakes, turn the sprinklers off, because we're in a drought at the moment, which is like, well, why are you using sprinklers? But anyway, we're in a drought at the moment, so I have to basically water all of the fields overnight.
When I met you, Dicky, I feel like how old were you? Like 36, 37?
Yeah, I'm like a year younger than you. Yeah. I
feel like over the past year, like you've now become 68 years old, just in lifestyle. Like you're this is like the life of like, I can already see it. The only thing that's different is that your beard's not gray, but like you will be living this life at 68.
Well,
Darn
Mikey
snakes.
Nichols, they said in the G1, Mikey Nichols does the same thing. But I don't shoot headbutt people. Maybe I should.
Well, thank you.
It's a 10 out of 10 hat, by the way, Dicky.
Beautiful.
Yeah,
hat.
this is a legit hat. See, look, this is the
a live snake.
Wow,
that's
this
snake
is the
skin.
This is the snake skin that was dropped.
Wow,
so
interesting.
Something's around here, but yeah. Anyway, what do you guys want to talk about? No,
Dude, what do you
Hey, Cody.
what do you think of this hat?
I like it very much. I think the chords need.
I'm asking
slightly.
Dicky. Dicky's a hat guy.
Okay.
You need more corks hanging down.
Was that these?
You
things?
need more brim.
No, you need corks on strings hanging down.
Corks.
I don't know.
Yeah, corks. You're not familiar with them?
It looks like a woman's hat. Not to say like hats need to be gendered, but are you sure that's not a woman's hat?
Chalk and cheese.
Don't set off her again.
Dicky, thank you so much for sharing your life with us.
Oh, that's right.
I would have never had this look otherwise into an Australian ranch. So thank you.
There's no one around either, so it's
Do you get lonely out there?
No, God, no. I'm because you guys are talking about introvert and extrovert sort of stuff. I'm an introvert to the point where I'm afraid to like leave my surroundings. So this is perfect because what I did is like I just expanded my surroundings, 10 times. So I'm actually a very outdoors person as long as it's within my comfort zone. So
that surprises me, Dicky. You have such a big personality.
It's not. I don't think that those two things are kind of related. I think a lot of it sort of came down to work as well. Like you have to be on for my job that I had. You had to like network and all these sorts of things. And I was able to do that. But when I got home, like I was exhausted and I didn't want to talk to anybody. And just, and then on the weekends, it's like, I'm not going out and doing anything. Like, I'm just going to stay in bed because I've spent all week like exhausting myself sort of thing. So, yeah, and I mean, I know you guys had like this episode about health and all that sort of stuff that, I wanted to jump in a while back, but it's quite funny because just being here, my steps have increased like at least by 4 times. I was doing probably like 2,000 to 3,000 steps before at my old place, and now without actually really doing anything, I'm not doing anything. I'm just talking to you, walking around. I'm doing like 15,000, 17,000 steps in a day.
So the snake hunting is really what you'd recommend as your diet, health routine. Hunt for snakes, 6 a.m.
Yeah, I don't even know what I'm recommending. It's just interesting that, just a change of lifestyle can have, more positive, impacts on your health and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, I just had my watch just tells me, like, my watch I think Tim Cook might give me a call and ask me if my watch is broken, because he's like, you were doing one thing and now you're just doing like completely another different thing. Like, is everything okay with your watch? So anyway.
Well, thank you, Dickie. Appreciate the update in life, and hope you catch those snakes.
Yeah, I'll see you guys in April. All right, bye.
Bye, Dicky.
See you, Dicky.
We'll save a spot at karaoke for Dickie Bird right there. Hey, let's go up next to Cory. Welcome to the show, Cory.
Hey guys, hope you're having a good afternoon and evening.
You
Thanks,
too,
Cory.
Cory. Cory, I could see you in this type of hat, yes?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Why would you want to cover that luscious
I do not rock any piece of headgear well, except for maybe a beanie if it's like super cold.
I see you with the headband.
Oh man, like real like 80s thrash metal guy headband. Yeah, looking like a member of Suicidal Tendencies or something. I wanted to chime in. You guys were talking about the dichotomy between being an introvert and being an extrovert. And for me personally, it's been a weird evolution for me going from, let's say, my early teens when I started getting more social or being involved in more social activity to now in my approaching mid 30s. When I spent most of my childhood and most of my early teens like indoors, like playing video games. I was very much like a child, like left by themselves. I didn't really hang out with my parents because they had their own like stuff going on. They hung out with their friends. So I was like alone a lot during my childhood. Like basically like I had a computer and I had a Nintendo 64 and that's what I did. And so my teenage years hit and suddenly I'm interested in music, and I'm interested in music that is readily accessible to me in terms of like being at most like 20 to 30 minute car ride to, either a club by me or like a VFW hall that's playing a show. And via my friend's older brother, am suddenly immersed in this whole different like subculture where everyone seems to already know each other. I'm sort of in my own like bubble because I don't know any of these people who are all way older than me because my friend's brother snuck us in. So I'm dealing with a lot of different things going on at the same time. And it's just funny because, being going to hardcore punk shows, one of the things is like, it's like moshing. It's like, throwing hands, kicking people. And it's so funny because, eventually I sort of gather up the courage to go in and throw a couple spin kicks, but it was never one of those things where afterwards I felt any more sort of confident in myself to go up and talk to people. It's just one of those things where it's like agreed upon violence. And and so afterwards, I never felt any more social. I never felt any more extroverted. It's band plays, you pop off, band stops playing, you go back to your little corner until the next band starts playing. And that's how I was. Like, that's how I operated in my friend groups. Like, that's how I was up until, I would say, like my early 20s, probably around like 22, when me and a roommate of mine, we started this like improv radio show where we would do songs in the style of, I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with Wesley Willis, the sort of, he was this outsider musician from Chicago. The whole thing is he had this like Casio keyboard. He would press the preset button on it and just press a key, and he would make songs. And there's a bunch of songs he had, like I Whooped Batman's Ass, Rock and Roll McDonald's,
Alanis Morissette.
Alanis Morissette. He had just a lot of songs, just an endless treasure trove, because it all followed the same formula: 4 lines in a verse. The chorus of the song is the title of the song repeated 4 times. Next verse, chorus, bridge, which you press the fill button on the keyboard a couple times. Then you do another verse, chorus. Then you say "Rock Over London," "Rock on Chicago," and then insert a corporate slogan. And that's how the format works. So we decided let's just do a radio show where we improv stuff in the style of Wesley Willis. And that was my first, because I would do the singing. So I would have to improv lyrics right on the spot, because we would have listeners send in song titles. And that was a big breakthrough moment for me, because there was a lot of thinking on the spot and putting myself out there in a way I never really did before. And then we crossed the next threshold when we decided we were going to do live shows. And so we'd play with everything from like weird like synth bands to like we even played with a couple hardcore punk bands at one point in like a crusty loft in Syracuse. And sometimes I would wear like weird ostentatious outfits and wigs. And if the crowd was rowdy enough, I'd start getting in there with them. And it was really that moment, that sort of bridge between my early 20s and my mid 20s, when I got out of college and started just going out more, that really was formative in me just like meeting people and talking with people and engaging with people more. I still consider myself an introvert, but similar to Wai, I find that it's all contextual based on the people I'm around and like the dynamics at play. I find that when it comes to meeting new people, I'm way more introverted. But when I'm with my friends, I tend to be the extrovert. When I organize things like parties, I find myself to be the extrovert, because I feel the need to be the facilitator of activity. And as I've reached my 30s, I find that I definitely lean more extrovert when it comes to social activities. But if I'm just in my own space, in my place of comfort, I'm definitely non-confrontational and introverted for sure. But those late teens to early 20s, I was very much in a shell. Like it was very hard to get out of. You feel like you're like a prisoner inside your own mind. Like it's very much a I have no mouth and I must scream type situation. And it's like very much a frog in your throat type thing. And it's kind of hard to articulate sometimes to people who like don't really understand it, but it truly feels like it's that feeling I get in the middle of my skull when it just feels like a bunch of fingertips are like pushing inside my skull trying to get out. And that's the feeling I get when it's like I want to be more of a social person, but there's just something in me that can't.
I can completely relate, especially like earlier in life, I think nobody really teaches you how to socialize in school. Certainly it's something you kind of have to go out and experience on your own, and even then it's hard to know what the rules are, right? It's hard to have somebody tell you, like, even if somebody were to tell you, hey, go and say this is especially true when you're trying to date or try to ask somebody out for a date or something like that. It's incredibly like sort of I mean, stressful and mentally taxing when you have a lot of thoughts and you get more in your head and you don't really know what to say. But for you, it seems like you found your outlet through music, right?
Yes.
Or through this sort of improv, radio show that you managed to do. And I'm so happy that you managed to kind of find that thing, because I'm sure a lot of people never find that thing.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I think any outlet is good if like, so I always try to encourage some of my friends who are a bit more introverted, who are also into the same music as me. They always say, I'm afraid to go to a show by myself, because that feeling of being like alone in a room full of strangers is so hard for them. And like it was hard for me a lot of the time. But and maybe
Would you mind articulating on that? Why was it difficult?
Yeah. So, as especially when it came to like very much capital S subculture music, you feel like you're surrounded by everyone who already knows each other, who already has a history with each other, and you're very much sort of the outlier there. You're this person. You're a stranger in a room full of strangers. Even and all those other strangers know each other, and you clearly do not. And it gets hard sometimes to go to these places where like you go for one thing, but another thing holds you back. Part of it is me getting older and realizing that I'm in control of my own time. And so when going to a show, I'm not at the whims of other people. So if I wanted to leave early, I could, or come as late as I want to, et cetera, et cetera. But when you're a young person and you're trying to establish your sense of self, and part of that involves participation in subculture, it's very hard to go to a place like that and interact with other people. And there is no real like good answer as to how to change that. It's sort of an exposure therapy thing, I think.
I think, if you don't mind me interrupting, Cory, I can really relate to what you're saying, but in a very different sort of set of circumstances, in which, in my school years, what you would call high school, I was very outgoing, very friendly, had tons of friends. And I think for me, college years were a little more tricky because a lot of my buddies were straight guys in their late teens, early 20s who were, wanted to go out socially and meet girls. I was kind of discovering a different kind of sexuality, obviously. And so I would go off on my own to gay bars in Belfast and be like, what am I supposed to do here? These people all seem to know each other. So, I mean, I'll not give you a biographical, go into too much detail, but that struck a chord with me. And I also feel that even later in life, because I'm older than all of you, it went in phases. I became a little more of an introvert when I was doing the 9-to-5 office work sort of thing, because it's that forced familiarity in an office environment where you're with people that you mightn't, no disrespect to them, but that you might not choose to spend your day with if you had free reign, and having to be very friendly. It's a bit like, goes back a little to what Dicky was saying about his workplace. I found that very draining. I'm now happily in a place where I have largely the same job, but a lot more freedom in the way that I do it. I can work from home a lot and so on. But yeah, I just wanted to sort of interject while I could, because I thought I'm going to lose that thought when you talked about subcultures, because for me, in the sort of mid-90s, gay bars in a city where there's no gay marriage yet, there's no, it's still frowned upon socially, that's very much a subculture.
And so did you manage to feel comfortable eventually?
My key to it is making friends. It's getting to know people, and it's getting over sort of yourself, and sort of, having a chat with somebody at the bar in those days because it wasn't so much internet based. And yeah, some people you click with, some people you don't. And it's a bit like this podcast in a sense that I'm not an extrovert, but I'm aware that this is live on the internet. I'm not under no illusions that it's not like thousands upon thousands of people are watching it at this moment. It's probably single figures right now, but other people will watch it after the fact. They can Google my name. They can, all of this will come up. And I don't give a shit because I'm doing it in what I feel to be a very safe environment with friends. That's the key to it for me.
If I can go to two separate places briefly. First off, Cory, you were the one who called in a couple weeks ago to touch upon the MJF, the quarters angle, yes?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for that. As a Jewish person, it was very much appreciated. So thank you.
Of course.
If you could briefly, to go back to how you started this chat, because I've never understood the psychology of this. So you're in the pit at more of the hardcore shows, and the spin kicks and the windmill with the arms. Like I'm into the push moshing. I'm into the crowd surfing. I'm into the stage diving. Is that behavior kind of similar to like the meathead bros, like actually moshing? Like I don't understand the psychology of that phenomena in a mosh pit.
Yeah. There's no way I can rationalize this at all. There is nothing rational about it. This very much has its roots in like, mid 80s New York East Coast hardcore, where people were just playing like the gnarliest breakdowns ever, bro. And like the only thing you could feasibly do with your body is like flail around and kick people. Like I am under no illusions about how stupid it is, but like when something hits, something in my animal brain goes off. And like when I was a kid with my skinny jeans and like my sock knees, I would just like flail my little like 101 pound body around in like a freaking rag doll.
So for you, the point wasn't to create a potentially violent situation for someone that may get too close to you.
I mean, maybe in the back of my head, but no, it's very much like a catharsis thing, like it's all a catharsis thing. It just so happens that you're among a group of people that have mutually agreed on this like unspoken, unseeable contract that we are going to get violent here. And it's all right, because that's just what happens here.
Understood. I'm trying to, I guess, understand what was attractive to me. And when I think of more push moshing or crowd surfing, to me, those things feel more collaborative and celebratory.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm even having a tough time like visualizing what this is.
An open pit, and it's kind of like you have individuals that are kind of just this and kicking wildly without restraint.
Imagine a room full of people shadow boxing, and then occasionally they hit each other, and then they go in separate directions like pool balls, and maybe they'll go towards the edge of the pit, and then they might accidentally hit people, and it keeps on going. And then when a bunch of people do it at the same time, it kind of looks like the beginning of a Western movie where people are getting kicked through the saloon doors.
So from my perspective, it doesn't feel collaborative.
I don't know if it's supposed to be, right, Cory? Like, I mean,
no, it's not supposed to be collaborative. It's like
it's completely individualistic,
yes,
and you're expressing what you're letting go of your mind, and you're letting your limbs do whatever they're going to do, whether or not there are people around.
This is very much a Damian Abraham conversation. I'm sure he can get very much into the history of pitting, the history of how it's evolved, because I went to go see his band a couple of weeks ago, and there was a whole lot of different stuff going on. So
how fascinating!
Yeah,
it is.
I feel like there must be some level of you're not going to break out into a mass brawl, or at least not very often. People aren't going to like It's not going to become a hugely violent situation. Just taking the odd spin kick. Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes something will happen that we refer to as a pit beef, and that's when things get
Okay.
things get a little bad, a little violent. But usually, it doesn't escalate to that because, especially the shows I'm going to, like everyone's just like older and
Sure.
understands the game. So yeah,
I'm laughing because it could not be more different from the kind of bars I was just talking about whenever I was at university. You know, it's people wearing angels' wings and
Yeah.
the crisscross leather.
Oh yeah,
things
very
in
much
those days.
the age of plur and like all that. Yeah. No, this is the complete opposite.
Amazing that you found it, though. You know,
But it was great talking with you guys, and I don't know if there's anyone else waiting, but always a pleasure.
thank you so much, Corey.
Thanks,
Always
Corey.
a pleasure to hear from you.
Have a good one.
Talk soon.
I'm gonna tip this hat to him.
Yeah, very nice. Very. Thank you to our two callers today. I guess before we wrap up, Neil, was there something that you wanted to touch upon for this particular show?
Yeah, well, I was wondering. It doesn't feel very organic at this point, so I'll get through it kind of quickly. But I sort of felt if it came up as we were checking in on each other at the beginning, I have felt
this show we're dancing around everything.
yeah,
so
whatever.
It's
It's the
perfectly
equivalent of the arm
mosaic.
waving thing. Yeah, I have felt recently, sort of between the last episode and this one, that I've felt a bit put upon work-wise. You know, so if we were going to bring any issues to the table, I preface it very slightly by saying I know that there are worse things that can happen. You could be out of a job, you could have lost somebody. There are a million things that are worse. But I felt like my to-do list has just been getting a bit on top of me, and to nobody's particular fault. And I have found this technique to be very useful, and it's something that's been around for a while, but I've picked up on it more recently, and it's called the 5-4-3-2-1 grounding method, or de-stressing method, or whatever. And the whole point of it is to get out of your head, basically. You know, I find myself thinking, how am I gonna tackle this workload? Oh, it's blah blah blah's fault, you know, and then suddenly realize I've spent 15 minutes in my own head with circular thoughts, circular arguments, what I wish I could say to somebody, all that kind of crap, you know. And this is just a way to get really into the present time, out of your head and into the moment. And it's dead simple, because you can really do it anywhere, as opposed to, for example, meditation, where to get the best out of it, you've kind of got to carve out some quiet time and some, you know, somewhere where you can't be disturbed. So I'll run through it real quick. I think Wai has the graphic up. Yeah, and one note about this graphic I noticed when I sent it to you, it's the most simple rendering of an eye that you could draw. But this is for people viewing, of course. But the hand is incredibly detailed. I don't know if it's the same person who wrote all of these. And as for the tongue, it's
almost like
yeah,
a
I've
cartoon.
seen things like that drawn on walls and toilets and things. Anyway, 5 things you can see, 4 things you can feel, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. So I'll just really quickly explain what that is. It's your 5 senses and engaging them. You start with sight. And of course, if you're visually impaired, then you just skip whichever one, or any kind of impairment, you would skip, you know, the relevant point. So 5 is sight. So it's basically acknowledging 5 things around you and noticing them. And so there's my can of delicious Coca-Cola, 0 sugar. You know, just looking at it and noticing the color and the sort of shine and stuff like that. It's the easiest one, actually. Finding 5 things around you, spending a little time looking at them, noticing them, the color, all of those sorts of things. 4 things that you can touch. That can simply be the feeling of the socks on your feet, a desk in front of you, if you're at work, computer, it's my phone. I can feel the case, things like that. Just really noticing them. You would do it a little slower than this, but I don't want to waste too much time. 3 things you can hear. Might be traffic outdoors, someone talking, someone in another part of the house, a television. You can make a noise yourself if you have to. 2 things you can smell. go to your bathroom if you need to. There's something smelly in there for good or ill, and one thing you can taste, and that's generally, you might want to take a sip of delicious Coca-Cola Zero, or there may well be some sort of residual taste from your breakfast or from your lunch or something like that. And if you do that with a little bit of intention, a bit slower than the way I've rattled through it, what I have found is it just breaks the cycle of the circular thinking. It gets you out of your head. It gets you very much into the present moment. You can take a deep breath and you can continue with your day in just a much calmer kind of sense. And I can look at my to-do list and go, okay, there's the low-hanging fruit. I can get those off there. They can be handled with an email. The next thing, that just needs broken down a bit. And I've felt that it's a valuable exercise. And I thought I'd bring it to the table this month because I've spoken to you guys about it privately and thought, it feels weird, when you read about it, but when you actually put it into practice, I have found it very effective in just getting my feet back into the present time. So, as Braden would say, would recommend.
Neal, you'd be a good educator.
You think?
That voice, absolutely.
Wai kind of put you in the full screen mode with the graphic, and I was like, yeah, it's kind of like I'm in a lecture right now.
Being a teacher would have been a nightmare scenario for me because, believe it or not, this.
If you're watching YouTube right now, I'm going to screenshot that.
This polite young man before you was a bit of a dick in school with like supply teachers and things like that. What would you call that in the States? Or substitute teachers?
Yes.
When they would come in, I would be one of those ones who'd be a complete asshole, making noises and sort of humming through with their mouth open.
So your teacher,
just so the teachers to annoy this teacher, So I always thought I don't want to be subjected to a little shit like I was when I was 12 or whatever. But
so your teachers could have used these grounding exercises.
Yes, very much so.
If I could add to maybe the utility of such a mindfulness grounding exercise. So Neal, you mentioned kind of if you're stuck in your head, maybe stuck in thought of some way, I would add, but also stuck in a particularly difficult or unproductive emotion, or if you're in physical pain. So many years ago, I dislocated my shoulder and it took about 3 hours before a professional was able to help put it back into place. So this is stuff I had to do. And it's not just, it's also like directing our attention often to things that are kind of depersonalize the situation. So noticing the color of the can in front of you. And then that's taking a bit of our attention or energy away from the thing that feels distressing more personally to us in the moment. Techniques.
Is it different from distraction?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Could I be watching TV instead to achieve a similar effect or something?
I think part of the intention is to really bring a more full focused, conscious attention to the things that you'd be noticing. So if you're getting wrapped up maybe in a TV show or listening to a song and really being mindful in the situation, then would that be considered distraction? I don't know. If you're doing it more mindlessly, I don't know if it's like, when I think distraction, I think there's like I was going to say an absence of consciousness, but maybe not. Maybe you're just shifting your attention elsewhere. And in that sense, it is distraction.
Well, so the goal of this is to get away from the feeling of being overwhelmed, right? Or any sort of
it's billed, if you Google it, it's billed as an anti-anxiety technique or something, or just a wellness technique in the morning before you get going. It seems to be sort of multi-purpose, but at I would say at its core, it's making you feel just more present and less in your head and more kind of in your surroundings. And I can't really it is a difficult one when it comes to sort of, putting it into words, how it feels. But
It works. That's all. Right?
Yeah.
For you.
I think the difference perhaps with watching TV is sometimes you're doing that, as Jordan said, sort of mindlessly. It's, this is really quite an intentional, little project that you do.
I think really focusing on our sense of sense, literally sensing what we're seeing, sensing what we're feeling or smelling. And that in turn helps ground us in the present moment, in something a bit outside of ourselves, something that's a bit more objective, which is different than maybe a subjective anxiety about something or a subjective emotional experience about something. This kind of helps maybe wipe the slate clean, we could say.
So if you're listening to this, look up 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 grounding technique, grounding exercise. Again, they are 5 things you can see, 4 things you can feel, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. Try it for yourself.
Neil, that was pretty good for your new monthly segment. Neil's monthly wellness tip, just the tip, we could call it.
Okay, you can call it that.
I think we are done.
I finished looking more like someone representing the Rainforest Café.
That's true.
I look forward to Jordan, maybe you deepening your involvement with not just your girlfriend, but the Rainforest Cafe in the months to come. We still definitely don't have an idea of what we'll be talking about here next month. But what is that?
Literal feet from a road that looked like some motorbike.
Okay. Well, if you made it this far, thank you for paying attention to the wellness policy. Hopefully you got something out of this, even if it's just an ability to pass the time with hopefully some voices that you've enjoyed. Thank you, Dicky, for calling in. Thank you, Cory, for calling in as well. And find at Neal Flanagan, on X, at Jordan Beatwell on X, at Way0937, and give us your techniques. Maybe suggest a grounding technique or something that you like to do to put your mind at ease for next month's edition of Just the Tip. And we will chat with you guys later. Bye-bye.